It was one of those evenings when the rain poured relentlessly, drumming against the windows and forming tiny rivers along the pavement. I had just returned home from an exhausting day at work, my body drained, my mind cluttered with unfinished tasks and worries. The thought of cooking dinner seemed unbearable. I slumped onto the couch, staring blankly at the ceiling, when suddenly the doorbell rang. I dragged myself to the door, expecting the usual, some advertisement, or maybe a misdelivered package, but instead, I found a young delivery boy standing there soaked from head to toe. He looked barely 20, with a damp uniform clinging to his frame and a small cardboard box cradled carefully in his hands. The rain ran down his cheeks like little rivers, but he managed a polite, slightly apologetic smile. "Sorry for the delay," he said, his voice calm despite the storm around him. "It's been raining heavily." I thanked him absent-mindedly, reaching for the receipt to sign. But as I looked at him, something caught my attention. His eyes weren't just tired, they were alert, kind, and somehow genuine in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. There was a sincerity in his gaze, a sense that he noticed more than the surface of life, even in the chaos of his day. As he handed me the package, he hesitated for a brief second, as if he wanted to say something more. I smiled politely, imagining he was just shy or nervous, and closed the door behind me, thinking little of it. The warmth of the rain and the comfort of home pulled me inward, and I almost forgot the encounter. Little did I know that short, ordinary moment standing at my doorway, facing a stranger who seemed unremarkable on the surface, would soon become a turning point in my life. His presence, his demeanor, and the quiet way he carried himself would leave an impression that would grow stronger with each encounter. That evening, as I unpacked the box and sat back down on the couch, I felt a strange lightness in my chest. I couldn't explain it. It wasn't the package, nor the delivery itself. It was something about the delivery boy. The small human connection that reminded me that even in the most ordinary, rainy nights, life could surprise you in the most extraordinary ways. I had no idea that this young man, barely 20, would soon change my perspective, my days, and ultimately my life forever. A few days after that rainy evening, I ran into the delivery boy again outside my apartment building. I was carrying groceries and he was wheeling his bike through the puddles. The moment he saw me, his face lit up with a small, shy smile. For some reason, I felt compelled to stop and talk. "Hey, back again?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah," he said, laughing softly. "The rain doesn't stop, and the deliveries keep coming." His uniform was damp again, but he didn't seem bothered. There was an unusual resilience in the way he moved, like he had learned to handle life's challenges without complaint. We began chatting, first about the weather, then about the challenges of working during long, rainy nights. Somehow the conversation shifted naturally into deeper topics: family, goals, and the small joys we often overlook in life. I was surprised at how articulate and thoughtful he was for someone so young. His words carried a wisdom I hadn't expected from a 20-year-old delivery boy. He spoke about perseverance, the importance of hard work, and appreciating small victories. He shared stories about his life, about struggling to support his family, and the pride he felt in taking responsibility at such a young age. Listening to him, I realized how disconnected I had become from life's simple truths. I had been so caught up in my own routine, my stress, and my worries, that I had forgotten to notice the small things: the sun glinting off wet streets, a stranger's smile, the satisfaction of accomplishing something honest and real. Before I knew it, we had been talking for nearly an hour, sitting on the bench by the building entrance, sharing laughter, stories, and even some tears. For the first time in months, I felt lighter, almost as if the weight I had been carrying alone had begun to lift. His perspective, his optimism, and his authenticity were contagious. As we parted that evening, I felt a strange sense of gratitude. I had met countless people in my life, but few had reminded me of the beauty in ordinary moments and the importance of connection. This young delivery boy, barely 20, had done exactly that. I didn't know it yet, but that brief encounter would mark the beginning of a transformation in my life, a transformation that would teach me hope, joy, and a renewed appreciation for human connection. Over the next few weeks, I began noticing subtle changes in my own life, all sparked by my encounters with the delivery boy. It was remarkable how someone so young, with a job most people barely noticed, could have such a profound effect on me. Each delivery became more than just a package. It was a brief opportunity to connect, to talk, to laugh, and even to reflect. He would share small stories about his day, the challenges of rushing through orders in heavy rain, the joy of a kind customer, the little victories that made him proud despite long hours and exhaustion. Listening to him, I realized how much I had taken for granted. I had been so caught up in deadlines, responsibilities, and stress that I had forgotten to notice the beauty in simple, everyday moments. One rainy evening, I opened the door to a delivery and noticed he had left a small handwritten note on the package. The words were simple, yet they carried immense weight. "Keep smiling. Life's too short to be heavy." I stared at it for a long time, feeling a warmth in my chest that I hadn't felt in months. Here was someone who had very little in material wealth, yet he had the ability to inspire hope and positivity in others. That note, small as it was, reminded me to appreciate the little things: my morning coffee, the smell of rain, the sound of birds returning after a storm. It wasn't just the words, it was the way he lived them. He approached life with honesty, gratitude, and resilience. Watching him handle challenges, stay positive, and treat everyone with kindness reminded me of what truly mattered. I began to carry his lessons into my own life. I smiled more at strangers, appreciated moments I had previously overlooked, and started reconnecting with friends and family I had neglected. His influence, though subtle, was life-changing. By the time a few months had passed, I realized that this young delivery boy, barely 20, had done something extraordinary without even trying. He had shifted my perspective, helped me find joy in the ordinary, and reminded me that life is a collection of small, meaningful acts that together can change everything. Sometimes the smallest encounters leave the biggest impact, and he had left an imprint on my heart that I would never forget. Months passed, and our interactions became more than just casual deliveries. One afternoon, I ran into him at a small local cafe. He wasn't on his route, and I wasn't expecting him. We sat down at a corner table, the smell of freshly brewed coffee filling the air, and for the first time, we spoke without any packages or work between us. "I've been meaning to tell you something," I began, unsure how to put it into words. He looked at me with a curious, patient expression, the same sincerity I had noticed from the very first day. "You've changed something in my life. I don't even think you realize it." He smiled humbly, shrugging slightly. "I didn't do anything special," he said softly. "I just try to stay positive and do my work. That's all." But I knew differently. I told him about how his small acts, the conversations, the smiles, even the note he had left, had made me see life differently. How I had started appreciating the little things again. How I had reconnected with friends and family. And how I had found joy in moments I used to overlook. He listened quietly, nodding occasionally, and then said something that made me pause. "It's amazing how life works," he said. "Sometimes the person who seems ordinary to everyone else can touch your life in extraordinary ways. You don't even know the ripple you create just by being kind." His words hit me harder than anything else. I realized that he was right. Life's most profound lessons often come from unexpected places, from people who don't have wealth, status, or fame, but who have something far more powerful: authenticity, kindness, and perspective. We finished our coffee, and as he got up to leave, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. A young delivery boy, barely 20, had reminded me how to live fully, how to find happiness in simplicity, and how to value human connection over everything else. Driving home that evening, I reflected on the transformation that had occurred. It wasn't about the packages he delivered or the conversations we had. It was about the light he brought into a life that had grown dim with routine, stress, and solitude. He had changed my life forever, not with grand gestures or advice, but with his presence, his perspective, and his unwavering kindness. And I knew that no matter where life took him, the lessons he had given me would stay with me forever, shaping the way I live, love, and appreciate every small moment. Sometimes life's greatest teachers arrive at your doorstep, carrying more than just a delivery. They carry hope,